What's up, everybody? Episode 33 here. I think I'm finally getting my voice back. I think I'm finally able to talk without dying. Still got little coughs here and there, but man, I feel like it's been 3 weeks of like on and off sickness. Wild. So, we got some more work done in the car. Got some bad news that we're going to talk about. Some news that I'm not sure how I'm going to handle or deal with, but we'll figure it out. So I got the number one bar sitting back in there. I got this outer plate here welded. The upper plate still needs to go on, and I'm actually debating whether to put that on or not. I think it's more of a aesthetic, just to look clean. So I may or may not put that on. I haven't decided yet. But you can see we got our 3 bolts. Our 3 bolts set up on there. And what we ended up doing, this side is tacked. 3 bolts set up there. And after I got this side tacked, I was curious if the bar was still level, which it is. All right. So the bar is still level. I put the laser in the back and measured from the bar to the laser, and then over there from the bar to the laser. And both of them were like 3 inches, 50 thou. So pretty much spot on. Super happy with that. Super happy with how leveled it is. Then I grabbed my tape measure. And I explained this in a previous video, but what I was doing is I was measuring from the bar to this bolt right there, like that, okay? Doing the same over there from the bar to that bolt. And then I was going from the bar to where the end of this seam is, the very edge of this metal right here, not the seam sealer, but this metal edge right there. So these are nice, clean, stamped edges. So the OEMs, when they stamp those, they're, within thousands, typically. That stamp is cut in the same size every single time. And same thing with those bolt holes for the seatbelts and stuff. Those seatbelt holes are getting punched in the same location every time. So I'm measuring from there to there, from there to there. And then what I also did is these stampings here from side to side are in the same spot. So I was measuring from here down to the bar as well. Every measurement was less than a 1/16. I was so happy with how straight the bar was and how square it is in the car. I'm like, this thing's good to go. But I also mentioned that I needed to drop some plumb bobs off the shock towers and get measurements off the shock towers. So I routed a plumb bob down through the shock tower so it sits on the leading edge of my shock tower. Goes all the way down to the ground, okay? And I did the same on the passenger side, down through the shock tower. Then I got these magnets. These magnets here, they're exactly 1 inches. Both of them are like that. And because I'm working by myself, I would stick it to the magnet and go all the way up underneath the car to the front here and measure the plumb bob, okay? I could probably even do this by myself real quick just so you see. So we're stuck. So we're stuck up there. And then I'd come over here and I would go until the tape measure hits the bottom of the car, like that right there, and then swing it into the rope. And this side I was getting basically 77, just under 77. I'd go to the other side and I'd get 77 3/8. That's not good. 3/8 of an inch for my number one bar to the shock center line difference on the side from side to side is not great. I could put some stagger in the car, which I might do, but I don't know which way the stagger needs to be. I'm not super familiar with putting stagger in a car, but I street drive this thing a lot, so I don't know if I want stagger in the car. And I don't know if the stagger needs to be back on the passenger side or back on the driver's side. I haven't done the research on that yet. I'll probably end up calling my chassis guy and asking him some questions and weighing my options. Now, before you think that I got the bar in there crooked, I pulled some other measurements because I had some suspicions. When I pulled the engine and stuff out of this car, I noticed that the sheet metal right here looks wrinkled over the seam sealer. So you can see the seam sealer, and then this sheet metal here looks wrinkled up over it. Shouldn't sit like that. And then I also noticed that some of the welds up here, see that big gap there? And these MIG welds, those aren't stock. We already knew that the side of this car had been replaced. This is an unfortunate part. I bought a Texas car, super rust-free, clean title. I was hoping for the best. I didn't see any accidents on the Carfax. Honestly thought I was good to go. But come over here and we look at that same seam and you can see a big gap in there. So while my number one bar is basically perfect and I'm super happy with it, I found out that the passenger shock tower has been pushed back into the car 3/8 of an inch. What does that mean? I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. A couple of things crossed my mind. I thought about cutting the front end off this car anyways. I'm building a full tube chassis. Why don't I just cut the front end off and do a tube chassis front as well? At this point, the body's just on for the ride. I was already concerned with the structural integrity of tying this in, because if the car wheelies and slams down, this portion right here is going to take the brunt force of that, right? So I was already worried about that being tied in and reinforced a little bit. So at this point, I think what will end up happening is I may cut out portion of this. I may try and keep some of it still, but this right here is going to have to get cut and plated anyways. I already planned on cutting all this out and plating it. So having the shock be off on the factory hole isn't a big deal. I'm going to plate that up and move the shock where it needs to be anyways. So it's just a matter of, do I cut some of that front end off, tube it? Do I not worry about it, reinforce the stuff like I was going to do originally? And when I put the shocks in, I'll put them in wherever they need to be. That's where I'm leaning towards, because I still like the idea of when I pop the hood, it doesn't look like a crazy pro mod or anything like that, right? You pop the hood, there's still a lot of stock sheet metal in there. There's still the factory frame rails, and it still looks like an OEM-ish car. And then you open the doors and you're like, what the heck's going on here? You know, I kind of like the surprises. It's rear-wheel drive, but under the hood it looks not that crazy, you know. So I like keeping it closer to stock. I like the all steel aspect. It just sucks that the shock tower's moved. It is what it is. My number one bar is in a great spot. It's level. It's square to the car. It's exactly where I need to be. I'm just bummed that the shock tower is not in the stock spot. So therefore, anything forward of the firewall, I basically can't use as a reference right now. I can't trust it. I can't use it as a reference. So when I go to build the front end, I'm basically having to build it off of what I'm doing back here in the back of the car. So all my measurements for the shocks, the wheel center line, the alignment, all that stuff is going to have to be based off of this rear bar and what I do with the rest of the cage. The center two bars that go up next to the trans through the front, those will have to be nice and straight and square, because those are going to tie in to the K-member I'll put in the car. It's a little update. I'm a little bummed about the whole front end situation, but to be honest with you, it doesn't change anything. It really doesn't. It sucks, but it doesn't change anything. I just can't use my stock shock towers as a reference for measurement. I spent like, I don't know, an hour yesterday just racking my brain on what was going on, trying to pull measurements off of stuff. And then when I came in this morning, or tonight, I'm sorry, when I came in tonight, what I did is I started measuring stuff. So this hole and this hole are the same on the other side. So I measured from here to here, it's the same measurement. Measured from here to here, same measurement. Here to here, it's off. From here to here, it's off exactly 3/8 of an inch. So from here to here, compared to the other side, it's exactly 3/8 of an inch. Then I took the laser, shined it down on the front cowl area, and I lined it up for this corner and the same corner over there. And then I grabbed the tape measure off of here to the laser, just straight across like that, and it's 3/8 of an inch, go figure. So that's actually an easy enough one. I can just show you guys real quick. So 18.5. Some of these measurements are hard to do while I'm holding the camera, but I like showing you guys what I can when I can. And just over, oh, hold on, sorry. Just over 18 there, almost 18.1/8. So again, almost exactly 3/8 of an inch. This side's 3/8 of an inch shorter to the firewall. From the shock tower to the firewall, where it's collapsed down in that pocket, it's short. It's definitely been hit in the front and yanked over there. So another part of me thought that when I got this portion of the chassis done, to try and get it over to a chassis shop, you know, maybe leave it on the jig or the table and take it to a chassis shop and see if they can grab those two and try and separate it. But again, I'm cutting the shock tower up, so it realistically doesn't matter. My brain knows it's there, so that's a little bit of a problem. But when it comes to the car's functionality, the safety, is not going to matter, because all these steel seams are all going to get welded up. The firewall will get welded up. I'll probably have a bar that comes through the firewall and braces this stuff somewhere. So there'll probably be like an upper bar that comes off the dashboard and goes through this area here and then ties in down here somewhere, ties into the front end, because chances are this whole front clip will get cut and this will all be tube in here. Again, I'm not that far. I'm just concerned about getting this in straight, which it is. All the measurements I pulled from there to the firewall are basically on point, on money. I'm gonna leave it, I'm happy with it. So I'm gonna get welding tonight. I'm gonna weld this in the rest of the way tonight. Probably put those upper plates in, and then I'll tack these plates to the bar. I'm not gonna finish weld them. I'm just gonna tack them on in like 4 spots so that they're done, but they're not gonna get fully welded until the rest of the chassis is done, just in case I do need to make a move for any reason. So I'm gonna get going on that. I hope you guys learned something. Bummer about the shock tower, but it's all good. It's not gonna make that much of a difference once we cut the rest of the stuff apart and fix it up. You guys have a good night. Thank you for watching. Peace.